Hi, everyone. Welcome to Restitch America. My name is Ohene-Opare, and I'm very excited to be here with you today. This is episode number 8 of season 2, and this is our very first episode of 2024. And today I have a very special guest for you. Her name is Mackenzie. Mackenzie is a Brazilian American citizen that's been living in the United States for the past 8 years. She's a teacher at a charter school, and she's seen the destruction of American values in our school system and in our society in general. She decided to speak up and created her TikTok account 3 months ago, where she compares the things that are happening here in the US with things that already happened in her home country in Brazil, as she talks about the disastrous results of certain policies being adopted here in America. Mackenzie is new to TikTok and other social media platforms, but she is growing an organic following, and now she has about 13,000 followers. Her goal is to ensure that her voice keeps getting heard. And so today, I'm very excited to bring Mackenzie to you. So I'll give you a little bit of a background on how Mackenzie and I actually met. So I started seeing her videos talking about the differences between Brazil and America. And I don't know if you've been on social media before, but it's a thing to bash America nowadays. When you turn on social media, a lot of people just seem to hate America for some reason, and most of them are Americans, many of them living here in this country. And then also you see a lot of videos where people compare America to other countries, especially when they've moved to a foreign country. And they always make it seem as though America, has all these flaws, has all these issues, and living somewhere else is way better, and they have much, much better lives. I have made a video talking about that, and I saw Mackenzie's video doing that comparison. And so I wanted to talk to her, and I reached out to her only to find out that she was following me. She's been following me for a couple of years as well. So that I thought was very interesting. So Mackenzie and I talked for about an hour and a half a couple of days ago. We hit it off quite well, and I invited her to come to Restitch America so that she could share some of her thoughts with us, especially in 2024, considering that this year is an election year. So Mackenzie, thank you so much for coming to Restitch America, and we're really glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm so glad you invited me for this podcast. And it is very funny, such a coincidence that you would reach out to me when actually you were one of the people that actually inspired me to start using my voice and to start talking about these issues that, for some reason I felt really alone. I felt like no other immigrants would agree with me or other American people, because like you said, it is a very common thing nowadays to see people bashing America. And when you think differently, it is hard to just be brave and use your voice and talk about the things you're seeing. So when I saw your videos, I think it was about a year ago or something like that. I did not have this account where, I'm making videos about Brazil and how things are there and here. I just had like my private TikTok account, like posting things about my family and stuff. But I was following you, and you definitely inspired me to start saying more things. So I'm really happy that it happened the way it did.
Thank you so much. Now, sometimes I wake up and as I'm doing this, and I wonder to myself, does this mean anything, right? Is it making any difference? And when I hear something like that from you, it gives me a little bit of hope that sometimes your voice, is
Yeah,
carried much farther than you ever realize. And the most important thing is to open your mouth and say
of
what you
course. Yeah.
believe, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. And I'm glad that I played a small role in helping you find your voice and giving you the courage to stand up for the things that you believe in. So let's start from the beginning. I want to learn a little more about you. So
Mhm.
tell me about your upbringing in Brazil and what eventually brought you to America.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Brazil in a big city called São Paulo. It's a state and a city. So uh, Brazil is a very diverse country, as you may already know, and then people look at Brazil different ways, right? Because when you say Brazil, there's some people who will think like, okay, that's a very poor country, and some other people will be like, oh no, Brazil's economy is really great. Um, and I think we got a little bit of both in Brazil. The thing is, there's this communist idea that's been fed to people in Brazil for a very long time. And now we're starting to see the results of everything that happened, let's say 10, 15 years ago. So, but when it comes to myself, I grew up in a very traditional family. We were pretty poor, right? I was just talking to my friend the other day. I think the first time I ever drank a can of soda, I was like 12 or 13 years old, because that was not a thing for us, right? Like just being able to afford soda, like that's not what normal people do, like, working people do in Brazil. I mean, maybe now because things are a little bit different, but and you probably know what I'm talking about. Snacks, like little things that we see here every single time, every single day, like those were like very luxury items for us.
Mhm.
I had amazing parents that always, worked really hard to make sure that I had what I needed. um but I always knew that that was not right. Like I always had this feeling like, why why do my parents work so hard and we're still like living like this? And when I started growing up a little bit more, I would say like in when I was about 13, 14 years old, I started becoming really interested in learning English. I really wanted to do that because I also sing. So I've always loved singing. And I looked up, American celebrities and singers, and I wanted to sound like them. So I think the language was what brought me closer to America, because I would be like watching these videos. And I remember in my 15th birthday, I asked my dad for a dictionary because I wanted to see what those words meant. The internet was really limited at that time, so we didn't have like access to it whenever we wanted. So that dictionary, I still have it. It's a something that I keep as a treasure, because I remember like that was I like to call it the beginning of the rest of my life, because I now, I teach English. I've been teaching English for 10 years. And yeah, and then when I was 17, I heard about this program called Au Pair. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but you basically come to the United States. It's a very affordable program. Well, at least it was affordable back then, because it costs, I think, $600. And at that time, the dollar was not so high, like compared to Brazilian reals. So I think $1 was like 2 Brazilian reals. So it was a very, very affordable program. So you come to the United States and then you take care of children, for a family, like you have a host family. And then they will pay for you like to go to school, and you can stay with them for a year, up to 2 years if you want to, and then you can change families. So I was like, okay, this is a perfect program for me, because I don't have much money. I really want to go. Like I've been dreaming about, going to this place for a very long time. And then I started working. I worked for 2 years. Yeah, I started working when I was 16. And then I said, when I turn 18, I'm going to take my driver's license, because you need a driver's license to participate in the program, because you're going to be like driving the kids and stuff. So I took my driver's license, which was very expensive in Brazil. Just so you have an idea, like my driver's license actually cost me more than the program itself.
Wow.
So, yeah, it is insane. insane. And then that's what I did. So right after I turned 19, I came to America. I lived in well, not Philadelphia, but a city that was kind of like I would say 20 minutes away from Philadelphia. I took care of three kids, and uh again, that was like the moment I realized I want to be here. Like, I don't want to go back home. I was still very young, so I ended up going back home, and but I knew that I was going to have to find a way to come back. So I stayed for a year, and then I moved back to Brazil, but always with that thought, like, I'm going to do something to go back there. And like, immigrating here legally is difficult because, especially before, like, it didn't have many options. I think the only options were through marriage. And I was like, I don't want to get married at 20 years old. So I that was not an option for me at all. So I kept like looking for different things, and then um I was 20 when I came back. So I had already started college, and then I finished my college. So when I started my master's degree, and I was already teaching English, like my life, just changed so much after I came back because my English got just so much better, and I was able to find different jobs in Brazil at very good English schools. Um, but long story short, I ended up getting an invitation to go to South Dakota for my master's degree, to stay there for 6 months, because they were opening their first ESL school. And then they wanted people with experience, like teaching English, and foreigners who wanted to, travel abroad and all of these things. So I met this very nice professor. He just opened the way for me. And then that's what I did. So I went to South Dakota, and that's how it all started. And I had my student visa and everything. And then it was a long process, like you probably know, like until I got my citizenship last year. So, but that's
Okay, so
that's
you're
how
a
it all
brand new
started.
American citizen.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And you are too, right?
I am. I became a citizen in 2021 after
Yeah.
18 years of being in America.
Wow.
And
That is
so,
crazy.
congratulations. Welcome to American
Thank you.
citizenship. So, thank you for sharing your background, your story. Do you have any siblings?
N- no and yes. So I grew up as an only child, but when I was 13 years old, my father got married again. My parents got divorced. My father got married again, and he had another child. But I think I've only seen her like 3 or 4 times in my life. So I am an only child.
Mhm.
I grew up as an only child. I do have a little sister. I don't like saying I don't have any siblings because poor Sabrina, she's there, she
So you didn't
exists,
live with
but
her.
exactly, like
Okay.
we have never had like this sort of relationship. And yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now we have a little bit of a background on you. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing I want to go back just briefly back to Brazil and tell me very briefly, what did you think about America? What was the sentiment that you had about America prior to your experience here, outside of, watching videos and so on? What did you think about America in general?
When I was in Brazil, or when I
Hmm.
when I actually
Before you
came
came
here?
here for the first time.
Before I came here. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I thought America was a place of opportunities where I could, improve myself and just become better. Like, I would be able to afford things that I would never be able to afford in my country. And I had already like met people that had been living here in the United States, and you talk to them even though I was very young. Because again, like in Brazil, for example, owning a car is very difficult. Like and I remember this lady. She was my best friend's aunt, and she would tell us all the time, like, "Oh yeah, I just got a brand new car." or I just traveled to this place, that place. And for us, it's like that that sounds crazy because only very, very rich people do that. And she would tell us, no, here in America, like if you're a waiter or waitress, like you're gonna have a good life. You don't have to be, because in Brazil, like you can have a good life, but you have to be like a doctor or a lawyer. You have to have hold like a very high position in society to be able to make money. Like you have to be a businessman. Like regular workers, they just suffer so much. Like they have to take the bus every day to work, and it's just like my parents, like they only
Mhm.
worked and never really got anything. So I just had this
So,
vision like, oh, it's a
yeah.
great place.
So, did America meet your expectations when you got here?
Oh, absolutely. Even more, because I remember people complaining about how much an au pair made because we made money through that program. We made $200 a week. So it was like $800 a month. And everybody's like, "Oh, that's not enough. Like we need to make more, blah blah blah." But I remember like I didn't have to pay rent, I didn't have to pay for a car or anything. So those $800, like I lived a dream. I could go to different stores and like get myself new clothes, things that were, and for a young girl, like this is a young girl's perspective, because a lot of people may think like, oh, you're just talking about materialistic things. But think about it this way, like for me as an 18-year-old girl in Brazil, like getting a pair of jeans was something like out of this world. We do that like once every 2 years. So now here I can go and just get myself like, I don't know, 2 bags of brand new clothes. Like, how crazy is that? So yeah, it definitely did. It definitely did. And plus the opportunities. Like if you want to work, you can start working like immediately. I remember I used to help my neighbor because she was an old lady and she wanted me to like trim the little trees that she had in her backyard, and I would do that like so easily, and she'd give me like $50, $60. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is insane. So yeah.
That's great to hear. So, you are now in America, you start going to school here and so on and so forth. When did you start doing these comparisons between America and Brazil, just in your mind, in your own kind of private setting? When did you start noticing? So you talked about in your intro that you saw basically the policies and the ideas that have placed Brazil where it is today versus the ideas of the American founding and the ideas that have made America what it is today. So when did you start noticing these ideas and the differences between the two philosophies in the two different countries?
I think it became more clear to me when this probably like after the pandemic, because we've all seen like a big change in America after that. Like people are all against America now, and thinking that and also after the elections, when they tried and did everything to say that one candidate was like the devil, when it wasn't the reality. So a lot of things started to just ring a bell in my head, like, wow, like I feel like I'm having a deja vu, because all of these things actually happened in my country. This idea that being rich is wrong, for example, that's something that's always been very, very present in Brazil. Like being successful, we always joke around, we say being successful in Brazil is a crime. Because when you're successful, you become a target, and then you don't have a voice anymore. You can't say anything because, oh, you're privileged, you're this, you're that. Like we were used to hearing those things in Brazil, but I had never heard such things here. But then, like during the pandemic and after the pandemic, I started hearing people saying the exact same things. They were saying like, okay, rich people are the problem, and when the whole like the billionaires, it's all about them, like we're living like this because of the billionaires. And I'm like, no, no, you're not. and that's when that bell rang. But if you're talking about like noticing how life is like different, here and there, like I've always knew, I have always known about that, like for sure. But I just wanted to add a little thing here. I feel like in the past couple of years, we've had a change in our politics here in America, because now we talk about communism. Like we have a party that actually defends this idea, or people who supports that party that are defending these ideas. Whereas before, I never saw that. Like it was more like, okay, if you're a liberal, you just want like more freedom of choice. Like even though you don't agree with, let's say, an abortion, but you understand that, if someone wants to go ahead and do that, then they should be able to. Or like, like gay marriage and stuff. Like it was more about that, like smaller issues. But then now I feel like it's become something about capitalism and how they want to destroy it. And that's when it got really scary for me, like in my opinion, because they don't know what they're fighting for. They really don't. They think they're going to accomplish something by destroying capitalism. The only thing they're going to accomplish is their own destruction. And that's why I want to talk to people. That because sometimes I see people supporting like these ideas, and I look at them and I go like, "Oh Lord, you don't know what you're fighting for, friend. You're going to be so screwed if what you want, if what you're fighting for actually happens, that I can only like try and help you. Like that's what I can do, right? Because I don't see you as an enemy. And I think we talked about it, right? Like not looking at people as like opponents or anything like it, because we want the same thing. Like we want to live good lives, but they think they're going to be able to live good lives through socialism and communism, which is just very far from the truth.
And that is something that I agree with you perfectly on. When I came to America, I came here in 2003 originally. And back in the day, when you would tell people or you would say that person is a socialist, it was such a pejorative, it was such an
Yeah.
insult. Like Democrats didn't accept that label. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I remember I was listening to a talk show host, and he said, mark my words, a time will come when they will accept the label of socialism, because the principles, they already had those principles, but they never, it was almost like there was a curtain, right? There was a curtain. And so I, when Democrat politicians will speak, they will usually say, well, we are not socialists. We still believe in the free market and capitalism. And but we knew that their principles did not match those words. And this person said, a time will come when the masks will go off. And it
Yeah.
happened exactly as you described. Today, all over social media, especially on the platform TikTok, you find a lot of people who are promoting openly
Oh yeah.
promoting communism, Marxism, and openly promoting socialism. It's no longer a pejorative. And today we have people in Congress who call themselves democratic socialists. We even had a presidential candidate who calls himself a democratic socialist, right? And so now the masks are off and people are actually embracing these things that we believe as immigrants, some of us coming from countries that were embracing these principles, we know that that is the path to destruction. That
It
is the
is.
path to destruction. It destroys ambition, it destroys values, it destroys people, and it destroys societies. And it takes away the fundamental freedoms that are necessary for the functioning and progress of any society. And unfortunately, a lot of the younger generation in America, because they take so many things for granted, they don't realize that what they're clamoring for is basically clamoring for their own destruction. And I think the way that this has been allowed to fester is that we moved away from a radical understanding of facts and reality and the true nature of human beings. And our society has become more and more driven by emotion. When you are driven by emotion, it is very easy for someone to come and tell you and paint a picture of communism as a system where we're all equal and
Because it looks
everybody.
very pretty,
It
right? And
sounds
that's all they
great.
want.
I
Oh, it
know.
looks great, but how are you going to make it happen? There,
Exactly. Exactly. How are you going to make it happen? And how are you going to do that and maintain people's civil liberties? How are you going to do that and maintain freedom? How are you going to
exactly.
be able to do that and maintain the Constitution of the United States? And my answer
They're
to that
not
as an
that's
immigrant
why
is
they want to change
you
it.
can't.
They're not going to be able to do that.
And I don't know, for you, the audience, many of you are American citizens, so I don't know that you know this, but as immigrants, when we apply to become American citizens, one of the things that we have to swear to is that we are not supporting the ideas of communism. And
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people know that. So as immigrants, we as American, or in order to become American, or even to come into this country, we have to establish that we don't support communism. And it
Because
is
those are American principles.
exactly, and
This is
so
the
it's really
foundation of
funny.
this country.
It's really funny that we come here and then we see American teachers in American schools promoting these ideas to our children,
Yeah.
the children of immigrants, which is kind of backwards. And so we are now the people sounding the alarm. Go ahead.
I was just it's interesting that you talked about children of immigrants because I've been noticing that those kids are becoming problems because their parents are doing a terrible job at explaining where they came from, and they're just giving them everything, and they're too busy to take care of them or whatever. And those kids, they take the label of victims because they are like immigrants, right? They, oh, I'm from Mexico, like my family's Mexican and stuff. But you were born here, you had all the American privileges, and you don't know what you're talking about. Because I do see a lot of immigrants, but they're always like, they're never first generation immigrants. It's always their kids. First generation immigrants like us, we're all on the same page because we have been there. We know what it's like wanting to do like a simple thing like I want to go out to eat with my mom tonight, and having to wait 3, 4, 5 months until you can afford it, which is absolutely ridiculous. Such a simple thing. Or, I've been working my whole life. I just want to be able to travel somewhere, and you just can't because a plane ticket is not something that's affordable for a middle class citizen, right? So our children, and that's why I have 2 kids, and I know you have kids too. I My kids are still little, but one thing that I want to make sure I tell them all the time is where we came from and why we're here and all the sacrifices that it took. Because one thing nobody talks about is that we would much rather be in our countries, right? My family's there. I like Brazil. I wish Brazil was a better place so then I wouldn't have to leave. I could just live my life there and, be a proud Brazilian, conquer my things and retire and live my life in peace. But unfortunately, you can't. So when you move to a different country, you're making a lot of sacrifices. You're leaving a lot of things behind. And sometimes we forget to tell our kids that. They feel as though as we're just here, and that's it. They never, again, I feel like this younger generation, they don't really like thinking things through. It's all very superficial, right? Oh yeah, my mom came from Brazil. Okay, but why? How? When? How did that happen? And most kids don't even know how to answer those questions. I'm a teacher, and I have a lot of immigrant students. Some of them were born abroad, some were born here, but they've all been here for a very long time. And sometimes I go, okay, lots of kids from Ethiopia. So why did your parents come here? Like, what's the history behind it? I don't know. Oh, really? And it's a lot of them. They don't know their own history. They don't know, how hard things are back home. They just don't. And I don't know if parents are ashamed of sharing that with their kids, or I don't know what that is, but I see that a lot.
That is very interesting. Um, and I wanted to agree with you on the idea that we would much rather be in our own country. And I don't know if you have this experience, but sometimes after being in the US for a long time, I start romanticizing my home country a little bit, where I'm like, maybe it wasn't so bad, and maybe I am just, exaggerating how things were. And then I go visit
I was gonna
and
say that until you go visit and you're like,
and then
oh
I
my
go
gosh, I need to
visit
go
for a
back.
little bit. And my country has developed leaps and bounds beyond, what it was when I was there. And I acknowledge the progress that has been made. So I'm not, necessarily saying that, nothing has changed. However, when I go back, it doesn't take very long to realize that, certain things have not changed.
Oh yeah.
Certain things have not changed. And sometimes people ask me, what is the difference between your home country and America? And the thing that I've learned to tell them is this. I say, in my home country, I could dream. In America, I can do. In America, I
That's
can wake up in the morning, have an idea, go to Home Depot, buy some prototype materials, and start building that idea on the
hmm
same day. This
yeah.
is a place where you can actually take the things, your ambitions, and actually begin to put them into action. And what I felt like I was doing all the time in my home country was daydreaming, because I could think about the ideas and I could imagine what I wanted to do. But then something as simple as going to the store and buying the thing that I needed to begin the process was
hmm
not there.
that's what people don't think about. um Again, something as simple as going to Home Depot and getting a couple of things, something that anyone here can do. Anyone in Brazil, or in you're from Guam, right?
Ghana.
From Ghana. So those things are almost impossible, right? You would have to save money for a whole month, and then when you finally save that money, there's something else that happens, and then you have to spend that money on that. So and a lot of times when I'm trying to explain this to people, they go like, oh, but you're only focusing on the money aspect of it. But that's it. Money is freedom, and the absence of money means that you don't have freedom, and that's as simple as that. And then they go, oh, so you see, money is the problem, and that's why they're now trying to merge into this, like, oh, socialism idea, or communism idea,
If we
because
abolish money. I saw a video recently where someone was talking about, oh, the hunter gatherers, they just had, a barter system and it worked. And once you introduce money, that's when greed comes in and all these different things. And I'm like,
th-
ah,
these are the
the
principles taught in
naivety.
Brazil. I'm telling, like, they that's what they've been teaching everyone for a very, very long time. You know that money means like that you're going to do whatever it takes. So money destroys people and it destroys families, and it's always like that. So they always make that association between money and destruction, always. And
So
that's why people are like this nowadays.
so I had a or I have a mentor who um said this about money for me, and it changed my perspective. He said, I don't work so hard because I want to make a lot of money. And he said, I don't call it money. And just like you described it, he says, I call it freedom points. I want
Hmm.
more freedom points. And if I work hard, I earn more freedom points. And I can use that freedom for whatever I want, whether it is to bless other people's lives or whether it is to give opportunity to my community, whether it is to help my children achieve their dreams, whatever it is I have the freedom points to be able to do so. And that's how I
Right.
look at it. And so we're working hard so that we can eliminate or remove the shackles that hold you down, right? And that's what I'm doing here. And one of the things you said, which is this the second generation of immigrants. So I have four kids. My oldest is 16, going on 17. And when we talk about our country and where we came from and the struggles that we had to deal with and all those different things, when we share that story with them, sometimes the response we get is, that was your life, right? That was your life. That's not our experience. So, comparing how you lived versus how we live today is irrelevant because that is not our life. And the only reason why we share that with them is to help them gain the perspective of the
Of
privilege
course.
that they
Yeah.
have here, to understand the privileges that they have here, the opportunities that are open to them, and to ensure that at any point they don't ever see themselves as victims in this system. And I've tried to teach my kids that if the only thing that could hold you back is yourself, your choices, and your ambition, right? And there's nothing, I believe, nothing that is structurally or systemically holding you back. And so the limits, the only limits that exist for you in America are the limits that you place on yourself. And that's the hope that I want to embed not only in my children, but I hope that through our voices that we can begin to rekindle this sense of American privilege, right? People don't realize the privilege that they have. And that's why I found your videos so inspiring, because you are helping Americans understand the privilege that they have. And one way that I've described myself recently is that I am a cheerleader for America. I feel like
Mhm.
America needs cheerleaders. It's
Right.
it's become now a thing, as we said in the beginning, to bash America. And it is hard. I believe the traditional American conservative, I feel like it is hard to get those people to be the spokespeople for America. And so people like you and I have a unique opportunity to speak up for American values, to speak up for the reason why we came here. We came here for things like the rule of law. We came here
Yeah.
for things like a free market. We came here for things like individual liberty and freedom. We came here for the idea that anyone has the potential to be great, and that if they apply themselves, if they take the opportunities that come before them, that they can make something of themselves. And a lot of American kids are growing up today believing that that is not the case, believing that the
Hmm.
system is rigged against them, believing that there's no way they can get out of it. And the only solution that is being offered today is to destroy the system. Nobody's saying let's make the system better. Nobody's saying let's let's fix the problems that we have in the system. A lot of these kids are growing up thinking we need to abolish capitalism. We need to abolish the free market. We need to abolish all these things. And the funny thing, the irony in all of that, and I think we'll kind of wrap up here. The irony in all of that is they're saying that the system of government in America is not working for the little guy. And guess what they want to do? They want to embrace a system of government that actually gives more power to the same government that they believe is failing the American people.
Exactly.
That is the irony. That is the biggest irony in this whole entire discussion, that they want to give more power to the same government that they blame for mismanaging a system.
Yeah, I always say that capitalism is not good or bad, like it's not evil or the good guy. Capitalism is reality. You know, you have something that I want, I have to give you something that you want in exchange for that, right? That's how the world has always been. If even when we didn't have money, we would exchange things, and if there weren't things, then we would, I don't know, I was just telling my mom the other day, like I said, that's our nature, right?
That's
Like, why
human
would I
nature.
give you something if I'm not getting anything back? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And I don't know where they come from when they talk about communism and things, because like you said, don't they think about like how it's actually going to work? These are the people who love, you know, different options. They like traveling, they like a comfortable life. Do they not understand that if communism is, you know, the system that we're using, they are not going to have many choices. They're going to have to go with what the powerful people are telling them to do, and it's been proven in places like Cuba, in China, and all of these places. And that's another thing that drives me completely nuts, the fact that there are people now trying to defend Cuba and say that they are a democracy, that, you know, things are just not so good over there because of the United States. It's always the intervention
Same
that
with
the United States has.
same with Venezuela. Same with
Exactly. It's always the USA. Oh, come on now. Like, those are, it's kind of like the same excuse over and over again. And most of these people, they don't even know what the Cold War was. They don't know what's the weight that, you know, communism and socialism and capitalism have in the world. Like, there's a history of a lot of things that already happened, that I think when you know that saying, like, it starts with hard times create strong men, strong men create easy times, and then easy times create weak men. So I think it's like a process, because now we're like almost 100 years away from like the Cold War and the Berlin Wall and all of these things. So people are starting to forget about those, and they don't learn their history anymore. And if they do, they learn it from very manipulated sources that are telling them again that idea that capitalism is so evil. Oh, people will tell you that communism killed like this many people, but if you look at capitalism, it kills people every day. Capitalism has never killed a single person in the world. What has killed people in the world is the lack of management that powerful people, the same people that you want to give all the power in the world to, have in regards what they're doing with their countries. So again, capitalism is not the good guy, but it's not the bad guy either. It is just the reality. It's not a system it's not a system to be loved, or, you know, it is what it is. I want something, I need to give that person, whoever has what I want, something also, something that they want. Whether it's
So
money, if
the way I will summarize it is capitalism is the byproduct of free people exercising their freedom.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that is the out
exactly.
that is the byproduct. So
Uh-huh.
people don't set out and say, let's do capitalism. When you give people freedom and they are able to freely interact with each other, capitalism is what breaks out. And that is why any other system is not compatible with freedom. Any other system is not compatible with individual choices, individual rights, individual freedoms, and so on and so forth. And I've asked some of my communist or socialist friends, I've said, if you achieve socialism, what do you do with people like me who will not comply? And what is the answer to that? What has communism done to any dissenters? What has communism and
Right.
socialism done to those people who don't comply?
And don't you find it so funny that they're so against guns? Like, for example, in Brazil, we're not able to have guns, right? Because these people have fought and they got what they wanted. They got what they wanted. We are not allowed to get any guns. Like, good citizens do not have guns. And then you look at Brazil's numbers, and you're going to see that our gun violence numbers are much higher than the United States. And oh, but you're not allowed to have a gun there. No, but the criminals are, right? Because they have all the guns that they want. When are people going to realize that criminals do not follow the laws? So you're trying to take away my freedom of having a gun to protect myself and my family because your reasoning is okay, so now criminals are not going to purchase guns because I said so, because I signed a law saying that it's prohibited. That's not going to happen. And again, we go back to that first point we were talking about, how people don't look deeper. Like they have very superficial visions, like, oh, guns are bad, okay, ban them. That no, that's not how you look at things. And again, they're being taught not to think critically. They're being taught not to ask any questions. They're being taught to just, their attention span is actually terrible. I work with kids every day, and I see that they all go on TikTok, they watch 10-second videos all the time. They get impatient about everything. So anything that takes time, anything that will actually help them develop their skills and stuff, it's too much for them. Oh no, this is making me depressed. Oh no, this is making my anxiety go off. And hey, listen, life is not easy. And again, now we go back to easy times make weak people. This generation is weak, just weak. They don't know anything. If they have to, I don't know, so to do something as simple as learn how to ride a bike, they may not learn it because, oh no, that's too hard, that's going to frustrate me. And a lot of times when you speak like that, people go, oh, you are so insensitive. Like you can be making fun of people's feelings and how. But listen, I actually feel bad nowadays for people who are actually going through depression, who are actually going through problems with their anxiety, that have like real mental illnesses, because nowadays it's like, okay, everybody has it. If I wake up tomorrow and I call the school and I say, hey, I'm having an episode here. I'm having a panic attack and I just can't go to school. They're not going to be able to ask me any questions. I can guarantee you that they're not able to ask me any questions. They're just going to let me stay home, and that's going to be it. And again, we don't look at it in a way like, okay, there are people who go through that, and that's awful. They need to be taken care of. They need help. But there are also so many people that take advantage of it. This thing happened. This is a funny story, but my boss, her daughter is she's a police officer. She's young, she's 20 years old. She got shot in the leg like 3 months ago. She was, just pulled this guy over and he shot her out of nowhere. So, and she's a strong lady, like both emotionally and physically. She handled that amazingly. Now she's back at work. And guess what? The guy who was not even present, but just came over, the other cop that came over to take her to the hospital, he took a leave because he said that was too traumatizing for him. He didn't get shot. He didn't see anything that happened. He just drove her to the hospital. And now he's going to be away for a whole year getting paid, and nobody can ask him any questions. Nobody can be like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be a cop, like if you're this sensitive, maybe this is not the right job for you. When we started like being censored, because this is what censorship is like. You cannot ask questions. You just tell me, hey, Mackenzie, I don't know, I feel like I'm having a panic attack, and I can't, I don't know, let's say you work for me and I can't go to work today. Am I not able to ask you any questions? Am I not able to investigate what's happening? And the answer to that is no. No, you're not. Because again, they made it such a thing that now we have to trust everybody, and everybody's got good intentions, and everybody's the good guy. Reality is not that at all.
Okay. So we are about an hour in, and I know this conversation could go even longer, but
Yeah.
we have to wrap up. So, Mackenzie, thank you so much for coming to Restitch America. This is not going to be the last time we have you on here, because I love these conversations, and I'm hoping that we can continue conversations like this. And I've started talking to Mackenzie about, allowing voices like ours to get out more. And so we have some ideas in the works. So stay tuned for some of those ideas. But the goal is to identify people like me, like Mackenzie, other immigrants that I've brought onto the show, and put together some kind of, I would say it's almost like an intervention for America, like America's intervention, right? From the
Yeah,
perspective of immigrants, to share with people, this is why we came here. This is why America is great. These are the principles and values that have kept this country great. And this is what we're losing if we don't correct course, right? That's the message that we want to share, especially in the election year, because every choice that people are making at the ballot box, they're not, in many cases, not realizing that it is tied to the future of America, and it's tied to whether we're going to lose this great experiment,
exactly. Yeah.
right?
No, and I'm really excited about this whole thing and just being in touch with you. You have great ideas, and I think we share a very um a lot of common thoughts, right? We want to have
Mhm.
our voices heard. We want to talk to people who actually disagree with us. So maybe they can look at things from a different perspective. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about everything that's about to come. And hopefully we can find other immigrants that look at America the same way as we do. And I think it's not hard to do so, because once again, I think every first generation immigrant will have that same experience, because they've been through very difficult lives in their countries, and now that they're here, they're able to appreciate it. It's very different when you're actually born here and your parents are immigrants. Not all of those kids see America the way we do, right? So, and it's important that we do it now, because like we talked on the phone, we're one generation away from losing all of these great things that we have here in America. So our voices really matter, and I'm just looking forward to that.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for what is to come. And to our audience, thank you so much for your support. Your continued support is why we keep doing this. And over the last year, I just wanted to tell you, I got, so on Spotify, you get a recap of the year. And when I got that, and I got all the summary about our podcast, I know that, we're a small platform. We don't have hundreds of thousands of listeners or anything like that. But I think this is why this matters. The reason
Hmm.
why it matters is that we need to convince ourselves that even if our voices can go to just a few people, it takes only a few people to make change. It takes only a
Yeah,
few people to make change. And so I'm glad that you support us. I'm glad that you're helping move this forward. And this year, I hope to bring you more voices like Mackenzie's. And I hope to also give you more opportunities to support the causes that we're working on. And I'm looking forward to a great year this year. And also, one last thing I'm going to say, this year is the very first time Mackenzie and I are going to have the opportunity to vote in a
that's
presidential
true. Yeah.
election in America. And so
And that's a
throughout the
big
year, we're going
deal.
to share our experiences with you as we gear towards that. For me, it will be the very first time I get to vote for any president ever, because I came here before I could vote in Ghana, and I have never been able to vote for presidents in the United States. So this year is going to be a very special year. This is also the year I turned 40. So great things are coming. So thank you so much for your support. Please go to our social media platforms and like and support us, and share this podcast with your friends and family. And I hope to see you all next week. Thank you very much.